They might be heavy, had to be snatched up as soon as they were dropped, and would have to be carried all the way back to the wagon, up to 3 kilometers ahead. Jacob and Reuben were obvious choices for that job. It'll be at the 3rd drop point, Miriam offered. I'm older and stronger than Chaya. Both of those were true, but I decided she was also wiser than me. Choosing the job that didn't require her to climb into a moving train, that task fell to me. Miriam dropped me off first by the tracks outside Buchnia, right before the train would pick up speed on its way to Krakow. A small station was here, but there'd be no passengers boarding. It'd be a safe place to hide while I waited for the train to pass by. When it did, I'd have 5 minutes to get inside a boxcar. Then would make a supply drop every 5 minutes after that. Jacob had carefully calculated the places each of them should hide along the tracks to find the boxes as soon as I dropped them. After the 3rd drop, I was to get myself off the train when I found a soft place to jump. No problem, I hoped. Once Hanusa left, I waited for the train from behind a wide oak tree. On a night that had suddenly become far too lonely, I had no fear of the dark, but no love for it either. The moon would have made it easier to see had it not been dimmed by thick clouds, but I supposed not being seen was the whole point of our raid. Right on schedule, at 10:14 p.m., the train rounded a bend, its engine a steady hum, its bright headlight blinding me. At the last minute, Reuben had cautioned that Nazis could be on watch from platforms outside the train. "Whatever you do, don't open a car next to one of those guards," he had warned. "How will I know which one has guards before I'm up on the train?" I asked. "You won't." He gave my cheek a quick kiss, then added, "Just don't get caught." With such encouragement in mind, I took a runner's position, ready for the train to pass. I was aiming for one of the boxcars in the middle of the line, hoping not to see any guards there, hoping not to see guards anywhere at all, or that at least they never saw me. The engine passed first, then a passenger car. A single Nazi was indeed standing watch on a platform at the rear of it, but he was leaning on a railing, looking away from me. I let 4 more cars pass, then began running alongside the train near the line of box cars. My heart had already been pounding with anticipation, but that was nothing compared to now, running as fast as I ever had, trying to get close enough to a bar on the train doors. Cool wind smacked me across the face, and the engine noises were all I could hear. If a soldier was shouting orders at me, I wouldn't know. My first attempt at grabbing anything attached to the doors failed. But I did better with the car after that, taking hold of the bar and swinging my feet onto the thick metal rod that braced the car from underneath. So far, so good. It was a trick to unlatch the door with only one hand, but I opened it enough to slide my body inside. Then widened it a little more. Against the passing city lights, I checked my watch. 10:20, only 4 minutes before the first stop. It was too dark inside the car to read the writing on the boxes, so I opted for the heavier ones, figuring they were more likely to hold weapons or food. 4 minutes later, I pushed a box out of the car and watched it tumble down the hillside. I didn't dare look out to see if Reuben was ready for it, or if anyone had seen what had happened. But I didn't hear any whistles or shouting orders, and that gave me courage. Exactly 5 minutes later, I did the same, but with 2 boxes, since they were lighter, and hoping Jacob was nearby. This said it was his plan. If I'd missed the mark, it was because he'd done his calculations wrong. At the third drop, I rolled out the heaviest box yet, smiling as I did. Miriam had mentioned how strong she was. I figured she'd want to be tested. Then I looked out for a safe place to jump. This was the part of the mission I dreaded most. Surely I wasn't the first person ever to jump from a moving train. Surely they'd all survived it. Or someone must have survived a train jump, somewhere. Hadn't they? As soon as the ground looked relatively soft, I closed my eyes, crossed my arms over my chest, and jumped. I hit the ground hard, scraping my elbows on the gravel beneath the surface, and hoping the stinging was the worst of it. I rolled with the momentum and kept going until I was behind some bushes alongside the tracks. That's where Reuben and Miriam found me 20 minutes later. My arms were still across my chest, but at least my pulse was normal again. "Are you all right?" Reuben asked, helping me to sit up. "You said it'd be easy if I rolled," I told him. "You said the ground would be soft from the fall rains." "Are you all right?" Miriam echoed. "That depends." My smile at them seemed hopeful. "What did we get from the train?" "What did we get?" Miriam laughed. "My friend, we have 1 crate of canned stew, 2 crates of potatoes, and some military field supplies that should fetch a good price on the black market." I leaned back against the slope and tried to do the math. It was enough food for the residents of a single building in the ghetto for a single night. The field supplies might provide bribe money to obtain 20 blank identification papers, or to smuggle 2 or 3 children out of the ghetto. "It isn't enough," I stood, determined to ignore the first aches of oncoming bruises. "When is the next raid?" Chapter 7, October 26, 1942, Krakow. Almost daily, Akiva continued to evolve, both in missions and in tactics. Gusta often spoke about how we should fear death, not for ourselves, but because death would shorten our mission. When rumors began swirling in the ghetto about a coming deportation, Dolek found us a safe house outside the ghetto walls. "It's to protect us," he explained, "and those inside the ghetto. If we're caught, we can't risk them being blamed for our actions." I had a reliable safe house ready in Krakow, used as a temporary stopping place for anyone we smuggled out. But Dolek chose an apartment nearer to the ghetto that would serve as our new bunker, and just in time. 2 days after we left, 6,000 people were removed from the Budgorj ghetto by train. Thankfully, my parents were spared. This time. There was another change, too, one that affected my cell. Dolek took Miriam and a few other couriers with him on a trip north and returned with a new 5th member for us, a girl named Esther, who intently studied the floorboards as she mumbled, "I've never done resistance work before, but I can't wait to learn." I arched a brow, deeply concerned. How could a girl who wouldn't even look us in the eye be of use for what we had planned? "Do you have any particular skills?" I asked her. When her only response was to stare blankly back at me, I added, "Can you pick locks, aim a gun, speak German?" "I have a good memory," she said, keeping her eyes on the floor. "And I can knit, though I'm sure that's not what you meant." No, it wasn't. Esther was petite, with a shy voice, an uncertain smile, and every possible look and mannerisms to radiate her Jewishness. None of us were perfect, but we all brought something of value to our jobs. I saw nothing in Esther that would help our cause, and plenty that would endanger both her and us. I immediately pulled Reuben aside into the small kitchen of our safe house. Esther was at the other end of the room, but although we whispered, she probably could hear us, and I didn't care if she did. Akiva was at a nursery school for helpless young girls. If we get in trouble, will she knit us weapons to escape? I said. You were a beginner once. We all were. Reuben was far more patient than I ever was. I never lacked confidence like she does, and I was trained before I did my first mission. We don't have time to train that way anymore, Shia. She'll learn on the job. If she can. Look at her. When I peeked back, Esther was, sitting alone in the corner, jumping at every passing shadow, and pretending not to hear our conversation, probably because then she'd have to defend herself. If she wanted to learn, then she should train in a cell with less dangerous work than ours. Dolik wants her to come with us, Reuben said. I can do it, Esther mumbled, still not looking at us. Trust me. Reuben shrugged back at me, and the decision was made. No matter what I said or thought, Esther was coming. Tonight, we left even later than the 10 p.m. curfew for polls. The streets were watched at all times by Nazi soldiers, though Akiva knew their routes and routines. We took the quietest roads, the darkest alleys, and understood where to hide if we heard a whistle and an order to stop. Reuben had a gun tonight, a Nazi Luger with only 3 bullets in it, but we weren't to use it unless we had no other choice. That was fine by me. Our cell's mission was to steal supplies. Gunfire hardly helped keep us secret. This time we planned to raid a train station out on the outskirts of Krakow. Several trains had come in during the day, but because of heavy rains, the Nazis were waiting until the following morning to unload them.